Hey everybody, it's Andre from the Eaglesoft Field Guide, and I'm here with Heather. Hi, Heather.
Hi.
And Heather's from Polhemus Dental in Raleigh. And this is my first chance to get a chance to talk to you. So it's good to finally meet you.
Well, it's nice to finally meet you. I see you a lot on Facebook doing your videos.
Anyway, so what we're going to talk about today is simple things that we can do to add to the existing Eaglesoft charting. And everybody knows I do a lot of fancy drawings, but what we're going to do is kind of down and dirty. The minute you're done with this video, you can do it yourself. And, I really want everybody to be able to do some of these things because in my never to be humble opinion, you should be able to see things like a buildup. You should be able to see things like, a all ceramic crown versus a PFM. So are those kind of the things you want to cover today with me?
Those are things I'd like to cover.
Okay, so Lingual Bar, we'll go through buildup, we'll go through an all ceramic crown, and we'll go through a couple other things as we go. The first thing that I always tell people to do is open up your chart. Open up a chart of somebody who you've done a lot of work on. Mrs. Jones, who has a partial, and she's got a bridge, and she's got some failing work, and you've done root canals and all that kind of stuff. And can you actually see the work that you've done on that patient? And if not, a couple things could be happening. And before we even start to do draw types, one of the things I always talk about is making sure that the drawings that you already have built into Eaglesoft are actually connected. So a lot of people will, they'll charge out a denture, but they won't actually put tooth numbers on that denture. And yeah, okay, we know that the denture is all the uppers or all the lowers, but the problem is, I'm gonna go to list and go to service codes. If I don't connect a D5110 full upper denture, all right, to teeth, then it's not gonna draw. And when I go to chart setup, it should be connected to your denture draw type. The other thing is if you don't connect it to teeth, and I know this is kind of silly because a full denture, the person's not going to get the perio charting, but if you don't connect it to teeth, you can't say that they're missing teeth, which would then pull them out of the charting. And this goes for a partial denture too. So a lot of offices, a patient will have a partial denture. I'm going to go down to my partial. A patient will have a partial, but because there's no tooth numbers on it, and there's no draw type, partial, connected to it, then there's no missing teeth, which means you go to perio chart the patient and all the teeth are still there. So it's a two-part thing where we have to have, we have to have the code set up so that the drawing shows up so that the action can happen also, which is to remove those. So that's one big one with dentures. The second big one is, I'm going to go to my endo codes. All right, so here's my molar root canal, and my molar root canal needs to be connected to root. And this is kind of a peeve that everybody has, because when you post a root canal in the walkout, not from the chart, but if you post it from the walkout, it asks you for the roots, which kind of is crazy because there's very few people who are only going to do one of the 3 or 4 roots on a tooth. All right, but in the chart setup, it has to be set up for root canal, all right, for the drawing. And if you don't have root, you won't have the root canal, which means it's not going to put the lines in the root canal. So it's, again, multiple steps in order to make sure that this will work out the way it's supposed to work out. All right.
Okay.
So that's the beginning of it, is starting from the codes to connect to the drawings to connect everything else. Now, let's draw some drawings. Draw some drawings. Okay, that's an interesting one. We're going to start with really, really simple one that everybody, once you do this, it's going to make your life easier. You have to be in the clinical screen. So most people are going to be at your front desk. And yeah, I know mine's kind of weird because I white mine out so it's easier for everybody to see what I'm doing. But I'm going to go to the clinical operatory monitor over here. And we have to do all of our draw types from that clinical operatory. All right. And then we're going to go up to list and to draw types. And we're going to create a new one. And everybody, just so you know, if you're an insider, if I've ever been in your office and done skill development for charting, I've got about 100 plus custom drawings. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from scratch and put some custom drawings in. So I'm going to go to new, And I'm going to call this, and I always do it the same way. I always call this custom in brackets. That way it puts it to the top of my list of drawings. And I'm going to call this buildup. All right. Really simple, custom in brackets, buildup. And I don't want this on the surface. I want this on the tooth. So again, when I connect it to my buildup, the buildup is connected to a tooth, which will then draw it onto the chart. So custom buildup. And if you see my choices here, it's not connected to all teeth because we want the buildup to be unique for each tooth. Then I want it to flip so that I don't have to draw it 32 times. What's going to happen, I'm going to do 1 through 8. It's going to flip over and do 9 through 16. Same thing on the lowers. And I always leave this checked, allow for conditions. That means if I ever wanted to use this drawing on a condition, I can, but for a buildup, I probably never will. But just so you know, I have the ability to do it. Now I'm going to hit the clear button. And now this clears this out. So now I'm working from a blank tooth, and I'm going to actually grab my little block drawing tool over here and make my brush smaller. All right. And then I'm just going to draw a block inside the root of the tooth. And that's a buildup. It really is that simple. You could, be a little bit more fancy and do it, you could do the buildup on the occlusal surface and the occlusal on the lingual surface. You could do that. I only ever do just the one. All right. Because the key to it is I've got to do this 16 times. So I don't want to have to do it 16 times 3. So I just do that one up there, go to my number 2, clear that out, and draw it again. And the key to it is to make it go not only in the crown portion of it, but to also go into the root portion so that when we actually put a crown on that, we can still see the buildup show under the crown.
Okay.
And just repeat the process for the rest of the teeth. All right. Nothing different about it, but that's it. Save it and you're done. All right. So you're going to repeat the process 16 times. You don't have to worry about the primary teeth. I don't think you're going to be doing buildups in primary teeth. But one tip, when you get down to primaries, switch over to get down to my primaries. Okay. Great idea. If you use the same drawing again, so if I do that, you could actually say that's a pulpotomy or a pulpectomy. So you could actually use this drawing. You could say this is buildups and pulpotomies, pulpectomies, whatever you want to use it for, and now connect it to your pulpotomy or pulpectomy code. So for your primaries, it actually shows as that block when you do a pulpectomy or pulpotomy.
Okay.
So, and again, that's why that condition button is nice, because you could reuse the same drawing, depending on what it is, for not only the buildup, but for something else. All right. So that's as simple as it is to create a buildup draw type. And now let's see how we connect that buildup draw type to this. So I'm going to go back to my list, and I'm going to go to service codes, and we're going to find our buildup service code, which is D2950. And there's our core buildup. Edit that core buildup. Remember, it's connected to a tooth. And we're going to go to chart setup, and we're going to put that buildup and pulpotomy draw type that we created there.
Okay.
All right. And I already had some fancy magic there. So there's my already custom draw type that I have. So now let's open up Hank Aaron and let's give him a buildup. Let's make it existing. And now we get that block in there.
That's actually one I think I can go ahead and get done right now.
There you go. And that's why I said a lot of these are so simple that if you think it through, it is so simple to create these draw types, because you just think, you have to kind of think ahead of time. Okay, what do I want this to look like? And I need this to stick out under the crown. So how do I make that happen? And you just saw how we did it. Just as long as you extend that block both into the crown area and into the root area, you can do it.
One question.
Go.
Once you add a draw type, like a buildup, will it retrospect for all buildups you've done, existing, pre-existing, as well as ones completed in your office?
It sure will. And the wonderful thing about that is and because I'm sure your office is perfect, you probably have never seen this, but sometimes you'll actually see where something might have been charged out twice, or it was proposed and also charged out. So you might still see a buildup in the tooth and go, oh, that's weird. I thought we already did that. And you might actually have a buildup that was charged out and then a proposed buildup on top of it. And now you can actually see it. So that's a great tool to be able to look and see, did we build this up? Did we charge this out? You're going to see a finished crown with a proposed buildup and realized we never built out the buildup. So it's a great way of making sure you get these things done. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Awesome. So let's take a look at another way we can do a draw type. And what we're going to do is we're going to build on the buildup to create a new draw type. And I'm going to go to list, and I'm going to go to draw types. And I'm actually going to go back to the build-up draw type that we created. So I just want to start from this as to show you guys to use the same exact concept to create another draw type for something pretty simple, but same premise, but a new drawing. I'm going to clear this out and imagine I'm starting a new one. And I'm just going to call this custom abutment. And this is a really simple one because if you're placing implants and you are showing that implant, but you also want to show that there's a custom abutment happening and then the crown, same concept as a buildup. We want to be able to see the custom abutment below the crown line. So what I'm going to do, instead of using that block tool that we used when we did the buildup, I'm going to use the square tool here.
Okay.
And again, I'm going to make my brush pretty small. And I'm going to actually draw the same thing I did for a buildup, but now as an open block. Actually, I don't like that. I want to make it a little thicker. So I make the brush a little thicker. That looks pretty good. Let's try another one. Let's go a little thicker. And again, I just want to be able to see this really clearly when I'm doing it. There you go. That looks pretty good. So now I have a custom abutment draw type. Same concept that we did with the buildup. Same idea, we want to extend it into the root of the tooth and into the crown. Nothing different about the way we do that, still connected to a tooth. Easy peasy, and we're going to do that 16 times on every tooth because we want to customize the way it looks for each one. Save it, close it. Now it's in our list as a custom abutment. Now we're going to go to our service codes and again, connect it to our service codes custom abutment. And that is abutment custom there. Hide my other ones. All right. And you can see my code, implant abutment custom, connected to a tooth. And in my chart setup, I would change that to my custom abutment code. Wherever I put it, custom abutment. There it is. So now when I'm charting this patient, and let's put an implant in here. So let's do my implant body and then my custom abutment. Where is abutment custom? There it is. So again,
that one too.
Really simple to do, but now your doctors can see, are we doing custom abutment or not? And if you wanted to, you could do something fancy with maybe putting a squiggly line in that custom abutment box, and that could be your preform abutment, So again, real simplistic in how we can do these things. You just kind of want to think it through a few steps, and you've got a drawing. How's that work for you?
That one works well too. I like how I can see it on top of the implant.
Exactly. And again, just so everybody knows, when I put a crown on there, and I know it's not the right crown code, but when I put the crown on there, I can still see my custom abutment. And that's why I wanted to make sure that line was pretty bold enough to be able to see through it. Cool.
Okay.
Awesome. So let's talk about another one. And one of the other ones that a lot of people are always asking about is the draw type for a lingual bar. So here's another one that we should look at is the lingual bar or fixed retainer. Pretty simple, but it does take a little bit of playing around with it. And there's another video on this on a YouTube channel, but for the sake of it, let's talk about it so you know how to do it one-on-one with me. We're going to go to list. We're going to go to draw types. And this one's going to be a little bit more odd in the way you do it, but just hear me out. And it's kind of a weird one, but we're going to do new. And again, our format for naming these things is always custom. All right. And remember, we want this to be connected to teeth. All right. And we're going to start with a clear drawing. Now, this is one where we're going to do something kind of weird. First thing we're going to do, and sometimes this works from the first time I try it. Sometimes I have to do it a couple times to make sure it works. All right. Because we're going to have to do a line for the lower teeth and a line for the upper teeth. All right.
Okay.
So it's kind of weird, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put I want this to be a really thin line. I want this to go right about here, and I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to try it. All right. And I'm going to say I need to use this for all teeth because it's going to go across all teeth. Right? Okay. And then the other one, I'm going to say, I think it's about right there, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to test it. All right. And I'm going to save this, close out. And one trick, what I started doing recently is I actually take a Post-it and put it on my screen so I can tell where the line should go. So here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. I won't say for all teeth. So I want to actually scroll through. And here's number 8, which is really kind of the center line of where I want it. So what I'll do is I'll draw the line like that, and then I'll put a Post-it on my screen. I know you can't see my screen, but I'll put a Post-it like evened up where that line should be. Mm-hmm. That way I know where to draw my line. Then I'm going to go to number 25, and I want that line to go about there. So I put another line on my Post-it to show that the line where I wanted to go there. Actually, no, I'm wrong. I wanted to go up here. So I put a line on my Post-it up there and a line on my Post-it where you saw it back on tooth number 9. Mm-hmm. So top and bottom, basically. Then I've got to go and see why I would have been wrong. So let's say use for all teeth again. And let's draw that line about right there and about right there. And I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to try it.
Okay.
Save it, close it. And now I'm going to go back. Now, I uncheck use for all teeth. Now this is where it gets weird. I'm going to use my eraser to get rid of the uppers, the upper line on the upper teeth, and the lower line on the lower teeth. So I'm just taking my eraser and going through, and it actually is working out where it is on the upper linguals. Come on. So this takes a little bit more thought and preparation, but in the end, so there, that's good for the uppers. Let's see in the lowers. Aha, it looks okay there. It looks pretty good.
Okay.
And we know that the lingual bar doesn't go all the way back, but I'm just going to leave it there for the sake of this video, because you can see it doesn't fit up there on number 31, but typically the lingual bar doesn't go that far back. And then for the primaries, I'm just clearing these out because I don't think there's going to be a lingual bar in a primary. I won't do them all.
Now, Andre, would you need to clear them out if it's something you typically do not do a lingual bar on a primary tooth? Should you go ahead and take the line off of them though? It's
up to you. Okay. I'm just kind of OCD, so I kind of want to do it that way. And and again, I typically will even erase the ones going back. I take this usually to like 27. And the beauty is if I take it back to 27, what I can do is I can actually stop the line, and it's gonna be backwards, but I can stop the line like there to show that really when there's a lingual bar, it only goes halfway back on 27.
Okay.
All right. And it's weird because that's the distal of 27. So kind of do it that way. All right. But now when we go, and this is one thing that you're going to have to decide as an office. When you connect it to a service code, like we did for the buildup and for the custom abutment, there is a code for orthodontic retention. And if an office doesn't do any other kinds of orthodontics. The orthodontic retention should be something that you're not using. So you might be able to use it for this. Otherwise, you might have to create your own sort of drawing for it. So the orthodontic retention is, where is it? There it is. Orthodontic retention is 8680. And again, if an office is already using that code, it might not be the right one for you to use, but this is what I use because it's the only kind of orthodontic retention I'd be doing. So I use that for my lingual bar.
Okay.
And again, it's connected to teeth or tooth. And in my chart setup, I would have my lingual bar as my draw type. All right. And when you go to chart your, I'm going to leave my custom one on here that I've already done. But when I go to chart, I actually highlight all the teeth that the lingual bar is going to be on. Hit my lingual bar here. There's my retention. And there it is. Show it as existing. And now I get a lingual bar.
Okay.
Yep. And again, that's why you see how I cut mine off, and mine's customized, but you can see I cut it off at the end of 27. And again, the drawing that we did, we ended it at 27. So it would work out 27 and again, mirrored onto 22. So, all right. Now, if the person has a lingual bar that doesn't go that far back, it's not going to look as fancy. So if I get rid of the two ends of it, it floats off in the middle, but that's okay. All right. What the whole idea behind this is down and dirty, quick, simple kinds of ways that we can chart some things so that we're fine and they work out for you. How's that?
Okay. I think I can handle that one too.
Again, and you know what, after you try it, you might have to move it up or down, and it's not a big deal. But remember, once you have connected a drawing to a service, you won't be able to delete that, but you can certainly edit it, clean it up, make it nicer, make it any way you want.
Okay.
Cool. Now, the last thing I want to look at is creating a draw type for your all-ceramic crown versus your PFM. And a lot of offices aren't doing PFMs anymore, but for charting purposes, we want to see what is a PFM and what is a all-ceramic crown. So I'll just show you in my example, my all-ceramic crown looks like that, and the occlusal surface is pixelated. And then my PFM looks like, where's my 2750? It looks like this, and it's solid. So it's nice to be able to just quickly look at it and see one's a little different than the other. But mine's fancy, but I'm going to show you guys how to do a quick and dirty way of doing it. So we're going to go back to our list. We're going to go to draw types. And I'm just going to edit that lingual bar that we made just so we can reuse something that's already in here. Clear that out. And then what we're actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to delete that one and create a whole new one, because this actually works out better. Just when you're starting from scratch, you always start with a crown. So I'm going to call this my crown all ceram. Okay. And it's going to be based on a tooth. And the beauty is it starts me with a crown. Now, this is where your artistic skills will come in. Take your brush, make it as small as possible, and change it to an eraser. All right. And all you're going to do is just swipe left to right on your occlusal surface. And there you have it. Now, if you want to be fancy, you want to do it cross-hatched or whatever, that looks kind of like the Van Halen's guitar, you know, so you can do pretty much anything you want in order to differentiate between your all-ceramic crown and your PFM. And you do have to do this 16 times. All right. And here's the tip. If you want to do this onto your primary teeth, it's great, because if we repeat our practice and you do an aesthetic stainless steel crown, and you want to show the difference between a regular stainless steel crown and an aesthetic stainless steel crown, you can do this and have two separate drawings for it. So remember, we can reuse a drawing for multiple things. So if it's on a primary tooth, you can say, oh, that's an aesthetic crown, as opposed to a stainless steel, standard stainless steel crown. But you know, you can really go to town and actually have fun with this and do whatever you want. If you want to, you know, use your eraser and make the Kool-Aid guy. So you can really do anything you want on this to customize it so that you can quickly tell one is an all ceramic crown and one is a PFM. And again, I'm not going to save this because I already have one. But if you go to your list and services and go to your D2740, your all ceramic crowns, make sure it's connected to tooth, but it should be already. Go in your charts and make sure you have your crown all ceram as your custom draw type.
Okay.
All right. So now we've got 4 new drawings in the system. Your doctor's going to freak
come
out
in and say, "What's going on?"
Exactly. Yeah.
I took a little class on Friday.
Good. That's what the doctors do. They come in on Monday morning and say, "I took a class. I want you guys to do something new." So there's a lot more that just based on what we talked about, you could do. I will take my denture drawing, and again, I go to my draw types. I'll go down to my basic denture, edit that, and it says I can't edit it, but I can certainly make a new one based on it. And if I wanted to, I could take, again, my eraser tool, and this might be not for everybody, but this is kind of one of the things that I like doing. I just stripe it like that. And now when I use this for my partials, I can tell that that is a flexi partial as opposed to a regular partial. All right. Not that everybody has to do that, but if you want to be able to look at a chart and see, oh, that person is a flexi partial as opposed to a cast metal partial, it's just another way you can do it. All right. So anything that has its own code could have its own drawing. So the other thing we were talking about was occlusal guard.
Yes.
Simple, but kind of complex. And again, we're going to multitask a drawing. So I'm going to go to my new, and again, we're going to name it a good name. I'm just going to call this guard. And we're going to make it for a tooth and clear it out. And this is really simple. Use my block again. I always start with a small brush if I can. And all I'm going to do is draw, whoops, that's too big, a line like that. And I'm going to go through the rest of the teeth and clear them out because I only want this to show on tooth number 1. There we go. I'm not going to do them all because you guys get the idea. So that is going to be my drawing for a night guard. And it's only going to show under tooth number 1. So when I go to my services, I'm going to connect it. But when I charge out a night guard, it shows upper all, and it'll be connected. I'll show you what I mean.
Okay. And the same vice versa in our office, we do a lot of lower guards. I would do it on tooth number 32.
Exactly. Yep. And again, if you see how I kind of left a little space there below that, the little bit of line there. So even if somebody had an upper guard and a lower guard, it would show both.
Okay.
All right. So you just give it a little space and you're going to show those 2 guards. So that's perfect. Yeah. So perfect. Because that way you can tell, does somebody have an upper? Do they have a lower? And again, depending on the tooth number, it's going to show on. But I like only showing it on one tooth. Yeah, I could have it go across the entire mouth, but it gets a little messy over time. And I'll show you what mine looks like when I actually post it. No, I don't want to save that. So I'm going to click on number 1 and I'm going to click on guard. And there it is. All right. And again, I got fancy. I just put some stripes down my guard, but same idea. For those who want to see what it looks like on all teeth, if you get fancy and say upper all, that's what it looks like. But if you're not careful, it will actually go over the top of the incisal edges. So I have to go in and actually customize and actually erase a lot of the spaces there. But that's what a full arch would look like. All right. So let's take that same idea. And again, just like we did from the buildup and the custom abutment, let's go to list, go to draw types, take that same concept on tooth, all right, clear that out. But instead of using the block tool that we used before, we're going to use the open block tool like we used for the custom abutment. And let's do, I'm going to go actually wide and do like that. Now, what's going to happen if I do it like that? It actually cuts the right side and the left side off of the block. You see what I get right there?
Mm-hmm.
What that is my Invisalign code, my Invisalign drawing. So it's an invisible line. All right. And it's the same exact thing as a night guard or occlusal guard, but it's not solid. So I can see that there's an invisible line through the middle of it, and that's going to let me know that this person has an aligner in place. Simple drawing to show aligners. All right. I'll cancel that out because I already have one in here. Close. And let's go back to my patient and let's give him an aligner. And that's what the drawing looks like.
Okay.
Yep. So I can quickly look at that and go, okay, in my office, green means go. So green is proposed. So I can quickly tell that that is an aligner that we've proposed to the patient. But if I edit that and say existing, that patient had the aligners done in another office. Hopefully not at the mall, but they had aligners done at another office. And imagine if I asked the patient if, I talked to the patient about doing it and they said, I will never get that done, then what I would always have it marked as proposed, but rejected. And now I can tell the patient said, nope, and I never have to talk to them about it again. But we did propose it to the patient. So really simple way to be able to see, again, multiple things. Did they have the work done? Where are they in the process? And I'll take it to the next step. Let's change that to we referred them to our orthodontist to get the aligners done because we don't do it in the office. So again, just a difference in the color.
Okay.
For those who are doing aligners, I just had the question come up yesterday. So what happens when the patient is complete with all the trays, but they're just in a maintenance phase? So what I actually did is I created another code in my orthodontics for finished aligner treatment. And I just made up a code and I connected it to a drawing that puts a line through it. So same exact drawings that I had before, but I just did a straight line. So I can tell that the aligner therapy is completed. And now they're just in maintenance. And that was just a simple straight line, the same way we did the double line for the Invisalign. I just made another line to go down the middle of it and connected it to that code. So easy peasy drawings for some of the things that we do every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
It does.
Cool. Was there anything else that you wanted to try to see how to do?
I think that covers a lot of just the things that we do every day that we just are not able, or at least now I am going to be able to visually see that when you pull up a charting, especially from a front desk point of view, when someone calls and says, this is on this tooth, and I now know it's a custom abutment implant versus a screw retained implant, without necessarily going to find out in the chart which one was charged out.
Yeah. And for those kind of things, it makes a huge amount of difference when somebody says, oh, my crown came off. And you're thinking, uh-oh, is this going to be, are they going to walk in here with the crown, the buildup, and part of the tooth in their hand? Or is it just something as simple as, maybe the screw is loosed or, something like that? It can make a big difference when you're looking at that. So, these are the kind of tools that, we talk about every day, making it so that when we open up a chart visually, we should be able to see exactly what's going on with that patient. And the more we do, the better it looks. And the more you start to play with this, the crown drawing that you saw that I did, all I did was kind of erase the edge of that line. And now I can tell that person has a gold facing.
Okay.
I mean, so, you can really get complex with this kind of stuff. The same way we did a buildup, if you take the time and you draw a line through it, you can see that there's a post going through it. So the more you play with it, the more you kind of know how those tools work in the draw types, the more you can kind of make things happen.
So for your post one, just while you had that pulled up, you just took the same type of draw for your buildup and just drew the extra lines through.
Yep. So what I did first is I actually, for my buildup, I actually I took the eraser and I erased like a thick line and then drew a thin line through the middle of it to represent the post and core.
Okay.
All right, here, I'll show you what I'm talking about with this. So again, go back to my draw types. I'll do a new one just for the sake of it. put it on a tooth. So I had my block. All right. And I took my eraser and this is not going to be fancy, but I kind of put a line through it. And I guess that's too big. But then I went back to my pencil and did my post to it.
Okay.
I know I didn't do that well, but you get the general idea.
Yes.
Yep. And again, some people are like, it doesn't really matter to me what's what, but you know, when I have the time to do it, I create these drawings. So, you know, but that's really, once you start getting the handle for how these kind of things work, you know, you can do all kinds of stuff. Once you start figuring out how these things work, you can do pretty much anything. Say, okay, there's a fracture through a tooth. You know, there's lots of tools that you can use when you're getting into this.
Okay, thank you so much.
My pleasure. I'm glad that helped. And once you get yours done, we all want to see what you did. So you're gonna have to post them into the Facebook group so we all see what happens.
I will take a picture on our test patient when I show you all these new codes I'm doing.
And a picture of the doctor's
draws.
face when he sees the buildups in his chart.
Yes, I'm sure I'll hear about that maybe by midday Monday.
Well, thank you for doing this video with me. It was a lot of fun to finally get a chance to meet you.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure finally meeting you on a more personal basis than just watching your videos.
That sounds good. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you.
All right.